Hi there, welcome to this Slido tutorial. I'm Kristen, and today we're going to show you how to get started with Slido. Joining me today are my colleagues Andrew and Jay. So first, Andrew's going to tell you a bit about Slido, what it is, and why it's useful for you. After that, Jay's going to give a live demo on how you can get set up and use Slido. Then I'll be back to tell you all about our integrations, looking at how you can use Slido seamlessly with Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Zoom, Google Slides, and PowerPoint. And then last but not least, we have our Q&A session, which will talk all about our most frequently asked questions about Slido. So next up, Andrew's going to tell us about Slido.
Thanks, Kristen. First of all, the question on your mind might be, what is Slido? So Slido is the industry-leading audience interaction platform, and we help to give everyone a voice, even the quietest participant, through engagement with our polls and our Q&A, etc. Then instant feedback is generated to build transparency and trust in the workplace. So ultimately, our mission at Slido is to help people get the most out of joining a meeting or an event by creating a genuine dialogue between the speaker and the audience. And we do this with our many Slido features that you can see here, from our Q&A to our analytics. And I'm going to go through each of these one by one in this section and explain what they are and what they do. So let's get started, first of all, with our bread and butter feature, and that, of course, is Q&A, so collecting questions from your participants. So with Slido, it's an easy way to collect your questions, and people can do this anonymously without any downloads or logins, and you can put in questions live or even in advance if you share a Slido link with your participants beforehand. So you might be asking, why should I use Q&A with Slido? And I'll tell you. One thing is that many great questions never get asked because of a fear of speaking up, but with Slido, people can submit questions anonymously so that all pressing issues come to light. You can also make your Q&As more efficient and democratic because Slido lets people upvote, so you can see all the questions, upvote the ones you like, and the most relevant ones will then go to the top. And lastly, you can manage your Q&A to be relevant by using moderation. So review all incoming questions before your participants see them to decide if they should go live. So that is our Q&A in a nutshell. And that brings us, of course, to the next section, which is our polls. With our polls, you can check levels of understanding, gather opinions, test knowledge, and even ask for feedback. Here's the polls that we have at Slido: multiple choice, open text, rating, word cloud, ranking, and we have our live quiz. You can also use a combination of any of these polls together in our survey, and you'll see how that's set up in the demo. First, let's look at the multiple choice poll, where you can discover your participants' opinions and preferences by giving them a set of choices to vote from. So let's have a look at what that's like. You can see here, you can ask a question, let people vote, and you can even set a correct answer, like in this multiple choice. Next, we have our open text poll, so participants can type in their answers and they can just put in full sentences, as you can see here. Great for brainstorming or gathering ideas. Next up, we have our rating poll, so participants can rate the effectiveness of a meeting, or you can see where they stand on certain matters. You can do it like this, where you have the option to use stars and let people rate it, or you can even use emojis. Next one is the word cloud, a popular one at Slido. It's a great conversation starter or icebreaker. The more popular a word is, the bigger it gets, and the more times it's been submitted. You can see that here, and you can even bring back your emojis for a word cloud as well. The last proper poll type we have is our ranking poll. This is the newest one we have, where you can actually identify participants' preferences and see what they rank in order of importance. So it's really good for certain projects or tasks. And then that brings us to the quiz. So with the quiz at Slido, you can make learning more engaging, dynamic, and social, and test the knowledge of your participants. The questions will show up on the screen. You can set a timer, or you cannot have a timer. That's up to you. The leaderboard will show at the end with whoever got the most answers and whoever answered fastest at the top, and the most difficult question shows at the bottom. Then we have our analytics. So with the analytics, you can gain valuable insights about your audience and how engaged they were, and you can share this with your colleagues or whoever you want. And you can use the analytics to kind of view the summary of all the topics and poll results in one place. It's also great for collecting feedback and discovering the trends and top things that people were discussing. You can also check the audience mood through the Analyze Sentiment feature, which shows you if questions were negative or positive or neutral. And of course, you can export and download all your data into a PDF, Excel, or Google Sheets and access them at any time. So there you go. I'm going to pass it to Jay for our demo now.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So let's take a look at the Slido demo and show you how Slido works, how to get started, and a few tips and tricks along the way. So what you'll need to do is log in to your Slido account. You can do that by visiting slido.com and then clicking the login button on the top right. From there, you can enter your details, or if you haven't created an account yet, you can do that from the same place. By signing up, it only takes a few seconds to get you going. Now, once you're in, you'll need to create a Slido. And when you do, you'll be prompted to enter the start and end dates of your Slido, as well as giving it a name. Once you've done that, click the green Create Slido button, and you will land in your Slido. Now, I'm going to turn my video off so that it doesn't take up too much of the screen or interfere with anything I'm trying to show you. Okay, now here we are in our Slido. We have some basic information at the top, such as the name of the Slido, the dates, the Slido code, privacy settings, and a couple of buttons, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Here on the left-hand side, we have a few different tabs. We have our interactions tab, which will contain the Q&A as well as the polls. We have analytics, which you can use to gather insights from your Slido during and after. And then we've also got settings as well. And this is where we're going to start, because I like to make sure that my Slido is set up the way I want it to be before I get going with it. So we'll click that, we'll see settings opens, and from here we can start changing a few things. We can change the Slido name, which we won't do. We can change the dates. We can change the code. So I might make this something a little bit more personal to me or my slide or my event. So let's do that. Let's change this to Slido. Let's go. Okay, and let's see if that comes up. It does, which is great. There are a few additional settings we can do from here. But one thing I want to look at is multiple rooms. Now, we're not going to turn any on for this demo, but this is really handy if you have an event which has maybe multiple tracks or a reason for your participants to go into two different Slido rooms. So you might have like a main stage and you might have a couple of breakout rooms. And from here, you can add different rooms, give them each their own name, and they will each be able to contain their own set of polls, their own Q&A, which is really handy for your analytics because it will be broken up for you when you export that at the end. So that's the start. That's our general settings. Let's look at collaboration quickly. And from here, I just want to show you this feature, which is to add co-hosts. Now, running a Slido, especially if it's a really big event, might seem a little bit daunting, but don't worry, you can get people to help. And from here, you would simply enter their email address. So I could add Andrew at slido.com or Kristen at slido.com. I would invite them. They'll receive an email, and then they can accept it, and they will be given access to this Slido, which is great. They can create polls, modify them, stop and start them, and run the Q&A as well. But what I want to show you is customization, because this is very cool. So you can add, if you have company branding, you can add your logo here or your partner logos. You can change present mode. So present mode is now currently royal blue, but I can change it to one of our preset colors, sandy beige, because this is my favorite. But if I had, or if you have your own company branding with your own colors, you can go to custom and then add in the hex colors right here and have present mode set up the way that you want it to look. So that's where you would do that. But we're going to keep this preset one here. And then the very last thing, if you scroll down, you'll see participant mode as well. So you can, again, add a custom theme to participant mode and you can change the colors in there as well. Now we're just going to keep it with the standard one, but that's where you would do that. You can also add a welcome screen and add external links as well. Okay, now that is a quick whistle through the settings. I would encourage you to explore this and make sure that you have your Slido set up the way you want it to. But let's save those for now. And we can see our Slido code has already changed now to Slido Let's Go. So first thing I want to do now is add a Q&A to my Slido. Right, it's turned off by default, but I can add it in. Now, I can do that two ways. I can click it from this from these tiles over here. There's no Q&A and there are no polls active, so the tiles are here to prompt you to get you started. I could click it from there, or I could even add it just from the interactions panel right over here. And that's what I'm going to do. I'll click that add button, and you can see immediately the Q&A is open. It's ready to receive questions. On top of that, it has opened a settings panel so that we can modify the Q&A to fit our needs as well. So let's do that. Let us turn on moderation, which means that we will be screening all incoming questions before it goes through for other participants to see. We can turn on replies so the participants can reply to each other's questions. We can change the character limit. We can add labels, which is a great way of allowing you to organize questions, especially handy in those bigger Q&As where you might have a lot of questions coming in. So let's create a couple now. I'm going to create one for myself. I'll create a label for Kristen, and I will create a label for Andrew as well. So we've got 3 labels there. And that I think is enough for the Q&A settings. So I'll close that. No need to save anything, right? That all saves automatically when you modify anything in your Q&A, as well as when you're creating polls. Each time you make a change, it saves. So you don't have to worry about losing any of that progress. Okay, so the Q&A is up and ready. We will test it in a short while, but let's add a few polls as well now. So I'm going to go to the green add button. We'll see our tiles back here, and I'm going to add a word cloud. I love word clouds. They're my favorite because they are visually very appealing, but they also are really great icebreakers at the start of a meeting or event. So I'm just going to ask something simple like, where are you joining from? Okay, now we'll see that's saved automatically. Okay. And that word cloud is now ready to go. I could leave it there, but actually what I might do is look at some of the settings. So I'll click the settings button on the top right. I'm going to allow participants to submit multiple answers if they want. I'm going to keep the profanity filter turned on. I'm not going to worry about adjusting the character limit or the poll description, but what I will do is I'm going to hide the results. Now, this is great when you want to stop participants from influencing each other's answers, or if you just want to have that big reveal all at once. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to finally and lastly add an image to this. So when I click that, what I can do is upload my own image if I have one. I can choose a GIF from the Giphy library, or I can choose a stock image from the Pexels library. So this question is about where you're joining from. So let me search for world map, and we can see a few different things to pick from here. I'm just going to choose the first one, and we can see that when I click it, immediately it's added to the word cloud. So I can close those settings, and there is our word cloud ready to go. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next is add a quiz. Quizzes are really great for getting that competition flaring amongst your participants. It's also a great way to test their knowledge on something or just have a bit of fun and be really interactive. So let's go to the add button. We'll select quiz, and we'll be prompted to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Jay's quiz. And then let me add a question to that. So add first question. Now I've got a question ready to go. So let me get this in. And my question is, who is the best action film hero of all time? All right. This is obviously my opinion, but it's also my quiz. So I can make the rules. And let's put in a few options. Is it Arnie? Is it Sly? Is it Bruce? or is it Sigourney? Okay, now I think it's Bruce. And like I said, it's my quiz. I make the rules, so I'm choosing this answer. But of course, you could choose your own if you were grading the quiz too. Okay, so that question is good to go. All right, it's saved, it's ready, but it would be a pretty lonely quiz if it was just the one question. So let's add just one more. Okay, now we'll get the add another quiz question button, and you'll see here that I can now add another question. And maybe I'm not feeling very inspired, or maybe I don't have much time to think of more questions. So don't worry, I've got my own back here, right? We've got a random question button here, and if I click that, you will see that a random quiz question has been added for me. Okay, and if I didn't like the look of this question, I can click the button and see what comes up next. What video game engine does the video game Quake 2 run in? Okay, and the answer there is ID Tech 2. Okay, so that's how quiz questions done. I could leave it there, or I could go into the poll settings for each question and adjust them. So what I could do is I could adjust the timer. I could turn it off or turn it back on. I could add a leaderboard. So if it was a longer quiz, I could add a leaderboard in, like say after every 5 questions, or poll descriptions or images. We're not going to worry about that. And actually, no, what we will do is let's turn off the quiz timer for the second one. Okay, so no timer there. Okay, now our quiz is ready to go. And the last thing I want to create is a survey, because once my meeting or event is finished, I might want to collect feedback, or I could collect it at the end of the meeting while people are leaving, or I could send it out afterwards as a URL. So let's do that. Let's go add. Let's create a survey. Let's give it a name. We'll just keep this one feedback. And just a note, you can also do this to collect information before your Slido as well, right? It doesn't have to be afterwards. You can also send out a link before, either to collect questions in the Q&A or just the survey itself, if you wanted to find out some specific information. We'll call this one survey. Let's add a question here, and let's start with a rating poll. So we'll go, how was the demo? Okay. And now let's adjust that slightly. Let's increase the value to 10. Let's change it from stars to emojis, because I like it to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more informal and fun. And we could change the low and high score labels. We could change the poll description, which we won't do, but what we will do is make this one a required question. So participants can't submit this without answering this question in the survey. Let's close that, and let's add one more question to our survey, and we'll make it an open text poll. So let's go for any other feedback. And we'll see that is saved. The survey is now ready to go, and we will share it a little bit later on. Okay, so if you're like me, what you might want to do now is test your Slido. And fortunately, that is really nice and easy to do. So let's get our Q&A open. And in the bottom right, we have this View as Participant button. When I click that, you will see Slido will open here on the side. This is participant view. So this is what your participants will see on their devices. Now, there are no polls active, and there is no question in the Q&A. So let's start by submitting a few. Now, I'm going to ask Jay, how did you get so good at demos? And I'm going to submit that from myself to myself, okay? Because I can either use my name or I can switch to being anonymous. I'm going to submit that from me. I can see that it's waiting for review. Remember, we had moderation turned on, so the question is now here. It's pending, right? It's waiting for us to sort through it. But let's ask a couple more. So let's go, and this one will go, Kristen, could you show us a little bit of info about integrations? And I can switch to being anonymous for this one. And when I do, I'll send that in, and you'll see that the question that will appear anonymously, it's still waiting for review. But it's also anonymous in in your host mode as well, right? And when somebody asks a question anonymously, it is truly anonymous. You will not be able to see who it's from. And then let's ask just one more. And this time, let's ask something that's maybe not relevant to our Slido. So let's just go, what time do the shops shut? And let's send that in. Okay, and again, it's anonymous. All three are waiting for review now. And let's have a look at them. So here in our host mode, this first question here, we like the look of this one. Okay, so let's approve it. We also like the look of the one here for Kristen, so let's approve that one. But this last one is not relevant. Maybe that's not quite right for this Slido. So what we'll do is we'll reply to it, and we'll say, please keep your questions relevant. We'll send that in, and when we do, we will see in our participant mode that it's waiting for review still. Okay, we can see the response from the moderator. But in our host mode, we can dismiss it now. So it's gone into the archive. Okay, we can always get it back if we want to. If we accidentally dismiss something, we can get it back from our archive at any time. But in participant mode, you'll see now it's been archived, but we can still see the review from the moderator. Okay, and then we can get rid of that as well from there. So last thing I want to look at in the Q&A is the labels. Remember, we made the labels earlier. Now we know this first question is for Jay, it's for me. So I'm going to head to label. I'm going to add my label to that one. We know the second question is for Kristen. So I'm going to go and add Kristen's label to that one. And this means that if we had 50 questions, and I wanted to see just the ones from Jay, I could go to labels and I could view them, just the ones with Jay, or I could view just the ones from Kristen, or you could even combine them as well. Okay, you could have multiple labels on each one, but let's keep it as all labels for now. Okay, that's the Q&A tested. Let's try a couple of polls. So we have our word cloud over here. Now we can activate it. We can start it right from the My Interactions panel, but we could also start it from the control bar down here at the bottom. Now this is a especially useful tool because it's going to give us a few different options. If we start it, we can see that we can now stop it from here. We can show the results, we can close the voting, and we can even move on to the next interaction. But before we do any of that, let's submit something. So where am I joining from? Well, I'm joining from sunny England, and I'm going to send that in. And when I do, in host mode, we will see that the responses have started to come in, so we can see what's arriving. But in our participant mode, and also in our present mode, which we'll see shortly, it won't be showing yet. And that's because we hid the results. So we could wait to collect all of our answers. And when we do, we can show those results. And when we click that button here in participant mode and also in present mode, it will now be displaying the results. From here, we can also close the voting. And when we do that, you'll see that I now can't edit or submit any more answers. And I can also move to the next interaction. And you'll see that that previous poll has now stopped and the next one has started, which is our quiz. So this is a cool way of seeing how the quiz works. We can see that participants are still joining, and let's do just that. Let's join the quiz. We can see here now that Jay has joined. I'm obviously going to be the only person taking part in this quiz. So let's get started. Let's move to our first question. And we can see this one here, which had a timer, had a 20-second timer. Who's the best action film hero of all time? We know the answer is Bruce, right? It was that one there. So let's submit that as a participant. And when we do, we can see we've got one submission in. Now we can wait for the voting to finish, or we could click the button. And when we do, it'll show the results, like who has voted how, or in which way. And then we can reveal the answer. We got that right, which is great. And let's move on to our next question. And I believe the answer was ID Tech 2. So let's submit that. Remember, we took the timer off of this one, so there's no timer counting down. So let's send that in. Let's lock the voting. Let's reveal the answer, and then let's reveal the leaderboard. When we do, we can see that Jay won. Well done to Jay. Well done to me. How did I get all those questions right? Amazing job. And then that is our quiz tested. So let's see what this looks like in present mode. And fortunately, again, that's nice and easy to do. Let's click the present mode button on the top right, and we will land here in present mode. So there's a few things we can do from here. First one being the QR code. This is how your participants will be able to join. So they can scan this with their mobile phone and it will take them straight to your Slido. They can also see the joining instructions here if they're joining from a laptop or PC. There's also some controls down here. There's a control panel down in the bottom left. So from here, we can, if you're a solo presenter and you're doing this on your own, you can create a new poll from here. You can activate them from here. You can move to the next one from here. You can switch between the Q&A and polls. You can even access some of the settings and go into full screen. In the Q&A itself, there's a few things you can do. You can highlight questions like this, and you can stop that from being highlighted. You can highlight a different one and stop that one. And you can even resolve questions from here as well. And these will be sent through to the archive. You can also do this directly from host mode as well. So here we are. We can highlight the question there and we can see that in participant mode, it's highlighted. So, and we can also resolve or mark it as answered. There we go. Cool. Right, so we've tested those. And the last thing we had on our list was the feedback, right? This was our survey. So let's fire that up and let's answer it. I'll give myself full marks. Any other feedback? Not today. And I'll send that in. That's been collected. Now, I can obviously activate this survey while I've got participants at my event or at my meeting. But if I wanted to send it out afterwards, I would use the share button up here. And from here, I can copy the URL link and paste that somewhere. Or I could copy or download a QR code if I wanted to put this onto a poster or into some slides or in any comms channels. So that's the share button over there. And then the last thing we want to do is reset all of these testing results. Unfortunately, that's nice and easy. So we'll click reset all interactions, and then our Slido is now back to normal, right? There's nothing here. All the testing's gone and it's ready to go for the real thing. Okay. And the very, very, very last thing I want to show you is analytics. Now, it's just been me testing so far. So obviously this is not going to be populated with very much, but from here we have a bunch of different things that we can look at. We will see some information such as the engagement, some other insights over here. We can share these analytics as well, and we can also export them. All right. So if I was to click export, I can choose to download to Excel or I can export to Google. And it's just a simple matter of clicking one of these, downloading it. Okay, Kristen, over to you.
Thank you, Jay, for that breakdown of our analytics. So let's get into our integrations. So we have 5 different integrations with WebEx, PowerPoint, Microsoft Teams, Google Slides, and Zoom. With our PowerPoint integration, you can add polls and quizzes and your Q&A directly into your presentation without having to switch between applications. So you simply download and install our integration from our website, and Slido will then appear in your PowerPoint menu. So once you've added all your polls, your Q&A, and your quizzes, all you need to do is present, and those polls will automatically activate once you get to them within your presentation. So it's really seamless. We love using it, and it's just a super easy way to use Slido in your presentation. You can even collaborate with others and allow them to present using Slido for PowerPoint. In order for someone to help present, they will need to be invited as a collaborator, have access to the PowerPoint file, and they will need to make sure that they have the PowerPoint integration installed on the presenting computer. So any computer that will be doing presenting with PowerPoint will need to have the integration downloaded. Next up is our Google Slides integration. So this one is very similar to PowerPoint. All you need to do is download our Google Slides add-on. And for the best experience, we also recommend installing our Chrome extension. This works similarly to PowerPoint in that you put those polls directly into your presentation and they activate as you present. So then we have our video conferencing integrations with WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom. These allow the host to moderate Q&A, activate polls directly from within the meeting window, and participants will also be able to interact with those polls from the sidebar without needing to open a browser or use their phone. It's all integrated in the meeting window itself. So you can find all the setup guides and downloads for these integrations on our website. And that brings us to our Q&A. So let's see what questions we have. How can I add someone to help me with my Slido? So to add someone to help you, that would be what we consider a collaborator or a co-host. So you can go to the settings here on the left side, go to collaboration, and add a co-host. So you send them either the shareable link or you type in their email here and click invite. And this sends them an email where they can set up their own credentials to access your Slido and help you manage the Q&A and the polls. All right, so how do I collect names and email addresses or find out who voted? All right, so coming back to our settings here, if you go under privacy, you can do required name or always required name. And again, this participant privacy is going to be specific to our professional plan and higher. So this setting is going to require the name. So there is a name associated with the question, like with the poll answers and the results. If you do named by default, they have the option of put their name in, but they can also still be anonymous. So those are just the differences. So if you put always require name, then it will require their name. And then to see how they voted or check on how they voted, then you would do this in your analytics and you would export. Download the export and you can see your poll results per participant, and you can also view your joined participants here. So hopefully that helps. How many days can a Slido last? So you can use a Slido with an annual plan. You can have it as long as your subscription is valid. So technically within up to, I would say, a year. If you're doing a one-time plan though, those are limited to 7 days. So you can have it start Tuesday to Tuesday. So it would just be a 7-day time frame. And then last but not least, we have Mark who asked, can I run a quiz asynchronously? Not necessarily. So with Slido, you have to basically have it be live. You're going to be clicking through the quiz, and it would need to be done in a live setting because you're essentially controlling the quiz live on the spot, showing the results, clicking through it. So thank you guys for the questions. You'll see a link to our help center and all the other relevant guides to help you get started below. That's it for this session. Thank you guys so much.